What's going on, guys? Joe McCall, the best coach ever, here for the Real Estate Investing Mastery podcast. Oh, the banner's hiding it. You can't see it, but underneath, I'll have to show you later. Underneath this cup, it says #1 on it. Anyway, guys, welcome to the Real Estate Investing Mastery podcast. I'm excited about this episode because we got a special guest. The reason I got this mug, by the way, is I think Todd Toback next to me is the #1 coach ever because he helped me get started in this business. And this cup is too full, or else I would pull it back and show you. But this is the guy who got me started in the business back in 2008 doing lease options. And we've been friends ever since. And he lives in San Diego. We're going to be talking about how to make massive, wildly profitable wholesale deals, even in difficult markets. When somebody thinks of Todd Toback, they think big deals in difficult markets when everybody else is complaining and whining that you can't do deals. It's too hard. Wah. Todd comes to the scene and says, BS. And he's killing it. He's been killing it for years and years. A lot of people call him the OG of wholesaling. He is in the house. We're going to bring him on. But first, I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by my book, REI Secrets. I talk about it a lot. Daily nuggets of real estate investing wisdom to help you get more leads and close more deals. This is a fantastic book. One of my friends called it, who read it, he said, this is the tool of titans for real estate investors, if you're familiar with that book by Timothy Ferriss. So get it for free, reisecrets.com. Every chapter is about 2 or 3 pages long. It reads kind of like a devotional. I wanted it to be something that would inspire you, motivate you, get you excited about talking to sellers and making offers and following up and building your real estate investing business and making deals and making a lot of money. So we bring Todd on. Todd Toback. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here, Joe. And I'm just excited to pour into the audience today. Hopefully we can get them some big checks, large profit, and have some fun in the process.
I'm excited because, again, you were used to be known as the big lease option guy, right? Back in the mid to late 2000s.
Once upon a time.
And that's how I got started in the business. Your course changed my life, really helped me. And those of you that don't know, Todd, when I bought his course back in 2008, I was in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, spending the night in a crappy hotel, working on this big, huge power plant. And I had a free coaching call as a bonus to talk to Todd. And I was on the phone. I said, Todd, can you really actually make money doing this stuff? Can you really make a full-time income? I think at the time, Todd, I was making 60 or 70 grand a year, which is not bad. And you said, yes, you can, of course. Mm-hmm. And that for me just flipped the light switch, flipped it in me. And I said, all right, I can do it. I know I can do it. Fast forward 6 months, I quit my job. I was making more money doing lease options part-time. Now, since then, Todd he's out of San Diego. And Todd, you've been doing some really, really big deals in San Diego, one of the most difficult competitive markets in the entire country. And you're not only doing deals there, you're doing deals in Florida, another super competitive, difficult market. At least that's what everybody thinks. And Todd is known as the guy who is not afraid of any challenge, who can take big deals down, even in competitive markets. And, he's known all around kind of the wholesaling circles as one of the OGs in this business, and people go to him to get training and all that. So I'm glad you're here, Todd. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. Joe, I want to add a little bit something to that though, because I don't care what market you're in. Ironically, I'm in 3 markets right now. We are in market in Florida. We're in San Diego, but we're also in Birmingham. Okay. Oh. I don't think I told you that, Joe, but long story short, we are doing big deals in all those markets. So we actually have a quote unquote easier market. We've got a medium market, and we've got a very, very challenging market. And out of all 3 of those, there's one thing in common. Okay. And that is we do big deals that are wildly profitable that will, if you model what we're doing, okay, you're going to explode your income. And I'm talking about your net income profit. And I don't care whether you have no experience or what market you're in. Okay. It doesn't matter. Right. And that's the one thing I want to reiterate is that we're going to show you how to do that on today's episode. But I think one of the biggest things, Joe, that I really encourage people to do is invest. Right. Yes. One of the things that I just love about this business is that you can generate, again, paychecks of $40,000 and $50,000. And I always encourage people to get off that treadmill, generate a lot of money, and take that $40,000 or $50,000 they make and take 40% of that and invest it in something that's going to pay them over and over and over and over and over again. Right. And so I just love that cycle where, again, you could generate big deals, generate huge profits, and then put that money to work where it's your slave, right? Because that's what everyone is looking for. They're looking to get out of the rat race and to be able to do that. And so today, because of this business, I'm able to take about eight weeks of vacation every single year. We buy what we want to buy. We go on the vacations when we go on vacations. We work, we want to work. And at some point, there was a delayed gratification where, let's say we talked about that beat up old truck that I had, or, not buying the new cars. But eventually you get to a point where that money just starts working for you. So if you can combine these big deals that I'm talking about, right? They give you margin. What does margin mean? Margin means that if you get to a point where you're generating, and again, this may seem, like a lot, but you're generating $400,000 or $500,000 a year net, or $1 million a year net, or $2 million a year net. Imagine how fast that you can build wealth if you take 40% of that and invest it. So we're going to talk today about that first part, because
Good.
I love saving. I love investing. I love doing that. But, if you don't want to live like a miser, which I don't suggest you do, right? I suggest living on a small portion of your income. You gotta increase your income. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's funny because I'm friends with your brother, Tom, as well. And Tom and I always, when we're talking to each other, give you a hard time behind your back. I apologize, Todd. But you're always the more disciplined one who's better with the money, who doesn't like spending it on stupid stuff. And me and Tom are the exact opposite. We always spend way too much money. We don't look at prices on the menu and when we're shopping. And Todd, who makes much more money than both of us, is like super smart with your money, which I like about you, Todd. That's one thing I like about you. All right. So we're not talking about more deals. We're talking about bigger deals, right? Todd, talk about that.
Yeah. So, one of the things I think, you and I have both been part of masterminds, right? Or we're in a setting where there's 200 or 300 students. Everyone's talking like, oh, that guy does, 100 deals a year or 200 deals a year, or that guy's going, nationwide. And so one of the things that I noticed, sometimes coaching makes you a better investor. And one of the things that I noticed between over the years is that, my business seemed to be a lot more profitable than the guys who were either in multiple markets or doing a lot of deals, And so I'm like, well, what's the deal with that? And I had a mentor tell me, of course you want to do a lot of deals as long as those deals are the best deals, right? If you can, structure your deals where you're hitting those maximum profit, because we went over like the time it takes to do a smaller deal. And at the end of the day, we just noticed that the smaller deals were taking up the most time, right? The absolute most time. And so, basically we decided, hey, you know what if we just focused on making $50,000 a deal? That was our kind of the point where we started doing that.
Well, I remember you were doing deals in Oklahoma at the time. You're living in San Diego.
Gosh, I mean, what a nightmare, right? Right. I just woke up. Holy crap. That's like PTSD, right? But it wasn't Oklahoma, ironically, right? It was because, we were trying to escape, right? We're trying to escape from, leaning into the difficulty of where we were, right? It was a distraction. We were looking at the grass is greener, thinking, oh my gosh, if we could just, find some place easier to do business, well, then, we could double or triple what we're doing. So it's funny that you brought that up, because we started doing deals in Oklahoma and we started doing deals in Cleveland, and we made some money. Our deal count definitely went up. And I could tell you that it was the single worst 6-month history in terms of net profit in front of our company. Now I can tell you this is that all our sales team members were high-fiving each other and they felt good. But at the end of the day, we noticed, hey, the net profit isn't coming. So Joe, we're going to talk about a couple of things on this, that a couple tips that you can use when you're negotiating.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to talk about some things on the back end that if you're negotiating, that you could do these big profitable deals. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Joe, give me 10 seconds here, by the way, and forgive me. My charger fell out of the wall here over here, so I got to charge it here. I got
Yeah.
to plug that back in.
I'll just drink from my coffee cup while you do that and show everybody the number one. If you're listening to the audio podcast here, you can see my cup. It says best coach ever. And underneath it says number one. A student sent me this cup, Todd. And I sent to Gavin as a joke, a mug that says second best coach ever. And the bottom says number two on Gavin's cup. Anyway.
Yeah.
How's that for a time filler there?
That was awesome.
That was amazing. Wasn't it?
This is not your first rodeo. So Joe, so let me talk about some things here.
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing is when you are negotiating is that a lot of people have what I call the income thermostat. Okay. And by the way, again, I don't care what market you're in. Okay. If you're in a low dollar market or a high dollar market, it does not matter, right? The size of your deal matters. Okay. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So before you say, and you shut this off and say, oh, San Diego or Florida or whatever that would be, fake news. Okay. It's fake news because I've done an $80,000 deal, right, on a house that I sold for $90,000. Okay. Does that make sense? So I've done an $80,000 deal on a house that I've sold for $90,000, right? And out in the, total boonies, right, of the desert in California, by the way. That was the most margin I've made, right, on such a such a small price house. Yeah. So the first thing that you have to do is check your income thermostat. So imagine that we are in we're in a cabin, right? And in a cabin, and we've got the thermostat on, right? And Joe, what happens when the heat, right, the room reaches the temperature, right, of the thermostat? What happens?
The heat turns off.
Heat turns off. Well, that's how most people operate their business, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, if you ask people what their average wholesale deal size is, they will see a pattern, right? You'll see the people who do 5 to 7 normally do 5 to 7. You notice the people who do 10 do 10, right? Or the 20 or 20. And so you start to see this pattern of what they expect they get. And someone's going to say, no, that's not true. Yes, it is, right? Case in point. Right now, Joe, if I said, hey, go work at McDonald's, right? There's nothing that I could do to get you to work at McDonald's, right? Because your income is way above that. Your thermostat says, no, I'm not going to make $10 or $15 an hour, depending on what part of the country you're at, right? You are not going to work for that, right? So you personally have that thermostat. I have that thermostat. But the people who work at McDonald's right now, their thermostat is right then and there. Even if they go someplace else, so like I want to raise, they'll go to someplace that has $16,000 or $17,000, right? So what you have to do is intentionally raise your thermostat. You have to say, I'm going to go from 10 to 30 or 30 to 50 or 50 to 70 or 70 to 100 and create an intentionality of where you are going. All right. Because you're never going to get more than you shoot for. Ain't going to happen. Right. You're never going to get more than you shoot for. So that's the first question. Joe, you're nodding here. It sounds like you have a question.
No, I'm writing notes. It's really good. Yeah.
And that is so real and it's so true. And if you don't believe me, just try it. We did this course one time. It was live. It was called Bigger Deals. And we had like 15 people in there. And basically the goal of the class was to double the deal size. And the first thing I said is, hey, what are you doing now? And where do you want to go? That was like the first thing that we did. Right. And before we even taught the mechanics of the course, the next week, someone's like, oh my gosh, I just did the biggest wholesale deal I've ever done. Right. Even before we got into mechanics, the week one was the mindset.
Oh yeah.
Joe.
That's huge.
It was completely nuts. Right. And so, the biggest thing that I would say is decide. Okay. The other thing, the second part of this, and again, this does not matter if you have experience or you're brand new, right, is what you say and how you say it. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I talk about, by the way, is I have a script that we use. And part of that skill is to get the seller to give you a number for the house. Now you're going to say, duh, Todd, I've already heard that. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper on that, Joe.
Okay. Yeah.
So by the way, is it okay if I tell people about the script? They can download the script.
Yeah. Where do they go? And I'll type that in here.
Yeah. So I've got a script that I'm going to give totally free to to your audience today, Joe. So to go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com, nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script. Okay. And Joe's going to put this up here, nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script. And this is the exact same script that we use in our company. But here's what you have to do is there's an uncomfortable process that you have to go through, right? So let's talk about the laydown. The laydown is when you ask a seller and they come in and they give you a number so low, you're even flabbergasted. They said that you run over the house and get the contract, right? And if you got a deal by accident, that's great. And believe me, I hope that you get 1 million of those. But the truth is, in today's market, those are like few and far between. Most people aren't going to talk about how motivated they are, if they are, right? They know that whoever mentions a number first loses. So what I recommend is you asking the seller and getting a number out of them what you're going to purchase their house for. But you got to ask 5 different ways. And what's going to happen is that you are going to get resistance on getting that number. And so there's this uncomfortable thing where you have to say, you know what? I'm going to dig deeper. I like the tension. I'm going to dig in to see if there's something here. So one of the things we talk about is if someone says, hey, if I could pay all cash and close quickly, what would be the best price you consider if there were no real estate commission or other cost to pay? And you wait. And if you don't get the answer, then you ask a different way. And you say, can you just give me like a ballpark? That's the second way. The third way is, do you have a best guess? So that's the third way. The fourth way is, well, do you know what other houses are selling for in the area, right? And go from there. And then, okay, were you expecting retail or would you be able to come off that number some? And what would that look like?
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
That's 4. Now, at this point, if someone's not getting the answer, you're like, oh my gosh, what if I can't ask again, right? And this is so interesting. And let me know if you've ever experienced this, Joe.
Oh yeah, I know exactly where you're going. This is good.
So now someone's, face to face with somebody and they now view this person as sophisticated. They're like, this person's sophisticated. They're not that motivated. So now I'm just going to throw out a high number because, they're purposely hiding this from me. And if I go too low, I'm going to lose the deal.
Yeah.
So we shrink, go back into our comfort zone, and then we do a $5,000 or a $7,000 deal. Okay. I almost have to run to the bathroom because I feel nauseous. Okay. No. So now comes the courage phase, Joe. The courage phase. So Dan Sullivan talks about the 4 phases of a new capability growing, right? And the first one is commitment. So we did that in the first stage, commit. We committed to big deals. The second part, though, is courage. And the courage is, what do we do when we get scared, right? What do we feel like we're going to lose the old us, right? We're going to lose the deal, right? We're going to lose the seller. And so what do we have to do? That's that courage phase that Dan Sullivan talks about. And, the third phase of that is what they call capability, where we actually learn how to do this. And the fourth part is actually competence. Well, everyone wants to get right to the third is competence, where we know how to do it. And the fourth is confidence. Everyone wants to jump to confidence, right? That's where everyone wants to do because it feels good, right? We don't like to be uncomfortable. So we have to jump to that courage phase and jump in here. And if they won't give us a number, then you go in really low. Really, really, really low. And so if they're saying, okay, let's say that that you could sell this house for 150 or 250. I'm going to recommend that you go in and try to make 70, 80 grand on that deal. And so go in a number so low that you think the seller's going to hang up on you. Go so low. Now, that comment, that their reaction is something that we call a stealth mismatch. So you go so low, it's probably going to elicit one of 2 responses. One, it's going to say, I'd consider it. Well, if that's true, get in your car, get over there and get the contract, right? Or send a DocuSign or get a notary over there.
Yeah.
But 2 is they're going to be like, oh my gosh, that was way less than I was expecting. I was expecting X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Well, obviously now they did have a number in mind, right? And now you've got the fish on the line, and now you could start that negotiation right there. Okay. So really that is my first tip, is that number 1, you've got to decide. Number 2 is that now you've got to have that courage. ask 5 different ways. If you don't get it, and you could, this is all in the script, by the way, nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script.
Yeah, I'm looking at this right now. It's really, really good.
Yeah. On there, there's there are 5 questions that you can use, from there. Hey, by the way, if you can invent some of your own, I'd love to send those. You could, give us some feedback in the comments here. But you've got to ask that, that's really, 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 you've got to ask that. So.
Well, this script is fantastic. And if you're watching this or listening to this right now, why have you not gone to get this script? This is something that can take you from making just 5 to 10 grand per deal, or 5 to 10 grand a month, to 20, 30, 40 grand or more per deal, just by asking better questions, right? And by the way, your scripts have been huge for me in my business, Todd. I don't know why I didn't introduce you with this, but looking back even at my lease option deals, the scripts that you gave in that lease purchase wealth course that you had, fantastic. And the example seller calls that you did, it's just the asking the questions, the negative phrasing, the takeaway. You have some of the best sales training that I've ever seen in any kind of any real estate investor. So again, guys, go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script. And if you're watching this right now live on YouTube or Facebook, type in the comments. Just tell us hi, tell us hello, where you're from, but let us know, give me a yes, confirm that you downloaded the script and got it. I literally went to the link and got the script from you in my email like 5 seconds later. So what else, Todd? You want to?
Yeah. So I'm going to give 2 more tips. Okay. Yeah. And the second tip that we talk about is conditioning. So understand that this is a process, and I can tell you, I remember when we built the pool in our backyard, and it was like $150,000, right? And the first thing that the contractor did when he came over, he was just like, this is a big investment in your family, right? I'm not the cheapest guy, out there, but you're going to have, the nicest pool, and everyone's going to be like, ooh, and ahhing, and, it's going to be awesome. So I'll send it to you. If you're looking for like a rock bottom price, I'm not the guy. He just started, I'm noticing this, and I'm like, oh, and so he started to say that. And then he said to me, if you go with other contractors, you might actually get a lower bid, just heads up, right? But this is what I do, and it's craftsmanship, and, going from there. Right. And then he threw in a little bit later, hey, one of the things we pride ourselves on is speed. Right. So, we're out of here in 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. And, some other guys just might be lower. They take a little bit longer, an FYI, but, again, we get compensated for that speed and efficiency. We never have to come back for any issues whatsoever. So by the time that I got this, my wife was like loving this guy. Right. She was loving this guy. And the problem is that he built up so much trust and equity, and he conditioned us for so well. By the time that we got the estimate, I knew it was going to be just astronomical. Right. And long story short, he gave us the invoice, and we hired him the next day. Nice. Right. And didn't really shop anybody else. The guy was conditioning us the entire time. It wasn't like just like a bomb.
Yeah.
And we love the pool, and we use it all the time. And we're so glad that we went with him. So you have to do the same thing with sellers. From the moment that you go over there, you are giving them other options besides you. You're telling them that they're going to trade a little bit of equity for speed and convenience. Again, all in that script that we're going to talk about. When you go over to the property, you never argue with a seller. Never, ever, ever argue with a seller. You look at things, and I learned this from Sean Terry, is you look at imperfections in the house, and you never say a word about them. You never argue. You never say, well, what about this? Right? You just touch them, look at them, make a funny face, right? And just write something down. And so you raise the pressure in this.
Yeah.
You ask questions good. like, how old is the roof?
How did this happen?
Yeah. How old is the roof? And be like, okay, is it, do you have upgraded plumbing? Right? No. Okay. And so you ask that, and you don't argue if they say, well, I built it or it's quality. Just never argue. Just ask questions that will lead to the answer that you want. Condition, 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 and condition, right? And then you go from there. Then you want to build rapport, right? Keep a friend. It's like a little bob and weave. So condition, build rapport. Condition, build rapport. If they start arguing about, the condition of the house, never do it. Ever, ever, ever. Just keep those thoughts to yourself. And so you want to be doing that the entire time. So even if they quote you a higher price that they wouldn't go below, got to soften them up, right? Because what we do is we are in the business of trading equity for speed and convenience, right? They trade equity for speed and convenience.
Yeah.
And the more they understand that, right, the better deal you're going to get. I said this, I got interviewed on a deal. Remember this, size matters. Okay. Size matters in real estate. It will be the game changer for your business. I promise you. Okay. So that's the second thing I'm going to talk about. But the third thing, and this is also so easy. I mean, any single one of these could double your deal size. But this one is one of my favorites. And that is when most people sell a property, they are normally selling to a cash buyer whom they've developed a relationship with, where the cash buyer is the mentor and they're the kind of mentee. It's all over the place, right? And you're like, oh, and you're wondering maybe if you're one of those people. Well, if you have 2 or 3 cash buyers and they're quote unquote friends of yours, right? Guess what? You are one of these people. If you're like, oh, well, I've got a relationship with this guy.
Yeah.
Well, I bet you have a relationship with this guy, because if you're leaving $20,000, $30,000 on the table on every single wholesale deal you do, I'm sure they love you. And there's a reason why they love you. So with all the marketing that you do and all of the work that you do, don't drop the ball at the 5-yard line. You want to sell this for the maximum amount of profit, especially in this market. So I'm going to give you a couple of ways to do that. Number one is that I highly suggest that you go and you rebuild your buyers list. Okay. So if you're starting from now, by the way, if you haven't done this, right, and you're starting over, that's good. You just know that you need at least 40 or 50 active cash buyers. Now, this is not getting a bunch of cash buyers lists from other wholesalers. Okay. That is low on my priority list. I want you to do 2 things. Number one is I want you to either go down to the auction and find everyone who's buying at auction, right? Or you could hire some intern to do that and have someone to do that and pay somebody $25 a name to have people sign up on your buyers list from there. So for me, I've got an intern that we hired to go down there, and we just said, hey, we're going to give you $25 a name for every cash buyer that you get at the auction. And we sent him down there, and he came back. He was there for 2 hours, and he made $350. That was awesome for him, right? Yeah. And great for me. And those people on my buyers list today. The second thing that you can do, though, is go to PropStream, and you can download. I know that, John, I think you also have a data company here on the podcast that you recommend. But so you want to download all the buyers off PropStream, and I would either skip trace them, and I would call them, text them, and mail them, right? And so you'll build a list, and you don't have to do this all at once, but over a period of 3 months, you could build that up to 100 real significant cash buyers. This is not a bunch of other wholesalers, real people who because if you mail to them, they're real, and if you go to the auction, they're real. Next is that every property that you have should be sent out in a format where everybody goes at the same exact time. They get a 15-minute window. You get a property inspection that you get when you have a seller. You actually get a property inspector there at the same time. Okay. And so when you go to the house, there's a complete feeding frenzy at the house. The other buyers see it, right? The sellers see it. And you may be asking me, how do I handle that? And I can talk about that if you want. And what you'll create is a bidding for the property. And I can tell you that we go from deals that, if you're making 20, you're going to make 50 or 60. If you are making 40, you're going to be making 60 or 70. Right. And so I highly recommend that you do that. Highly. And if you're not, you're leaving too much money on the table. Your old cash buyer relationships will change. They will be upset that you're not selling to them anymore. You're going to have to get past that awkwardness, right? Don't worry. They'll eventually come back, right? As long as you're open and upfront and honest about the process.
Yeah. Do you ever list your properties on the MLS?
all the time. So I
I
wasn't
get
going to
that.
get into that,
Yeah, yeah.
but I do both of those. So I absolutely recommend that you list the properties on the MLS, but you do the same process. And so we like to list on the MLS about $10,000 to $20,000 lower than we think that we get for the property. So remember when we talk about that whole courage thing, right? People are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to list too low. Oh my gosh, I'm going to lose a deal. Trust me on this. List $20,000 below what you think it'll sell for, bid it up, get a feeding frenzy there, do a 30-minute window, right? Have your property inspector there, right? And sell it for the highest and best.
Yeah, that's really good. You could do that for vacant land too, right?
That's another way to go.
Yeah. Can I ask you some questions? Well, first of all, we got some comments here. Valerie, Joe, you're the best coach. Thank you very much. Thanks for introducing me to Todd Toback. I signed up for his sales training. Isn't it good, Valerie?
Yeah. Thank you, Valerie.
Daniel from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. And Todd's the man from Facebook user. Nice. 2 living legends right here. Cool, guys. Thanks for the comments. Keep on bringing them in. And again, go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script. No limits, realestateinvesting.com/script. And download the script. I'm looking at it right now. Super simple, but super powerful on how to talk to sellers. All right. So I want to ask you some questions, Todd, about one of the things I learned from you early on was about not letting your leads fall through the cracks. No lead left behind.
Yep.
Talk about that a little bit. What does that mean?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I'm really going to reiterate, Joe, is, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, what's my favorite marketing channel to use? Or I did this marketing channel and it didn't work. And I find that laughable because I'll say, well, what'd you do with all the leads that you got? Right? What happened to, how many leads do you have? Oh, I had 200. Okay. When was the last time that you called any of those people? So think about this. What are the chances that a motivated seller is ready to sell the exact time that you send them a text or a voicemail or a call or a mailing piece? What are the chances that when they get is the exact time that they're ready to move?
Oh, very, very small.
Very small. But most people treat that and they're like, okay, if these people don't call and that's smoking hot, ready to go right now, I'm just going to let it go. It's dead. I can tell you that 95% of our deals are follow-up. So every deal that comes with our database, or every call, there has to be some kind of follow-up task to follow up with that person, or you send a written offer, right? And then there's follow-up tasks month after month after month after month after month.
Yeah.
Pretend like you spend, I don't know, $2,000 a month in marketing, which I think maybe is the average for a new investor, right? $500 a week. All of that money, right, will come back to you 3 to 4 months from now, right? If you're expecting to come back in a month, right, that's why you are not maximizing the deals. One of the things that I'm going to tell you, especially doing big deals, Joe, imagine that you have spent, again, I want to use numbers here for the smaller numbers here, but let's say you're spending $1,000 a month and over a year you spend $12,000. And because of that, you did 2 deals and you average $15,000 a deal. So that's $30,000 and you spend 12. Well, if you take a look at your profit margin, that's, okay. Right. But imagine for a moment, and this is 100% real life, that if you, number one, close 2 more deals because of what I'm telling you right today about, number one, following up with those prospects that you missed by not following up every single month. And now you increase that deal from 20 to 40, right? Well, now you brought in 2 $40,000 deals. So that's 80,000. And now your old deals, which were, let's say were $15,000 a piece, is 30, right? You now added additional 25 to that each. So that's the additional 50, right? So 80 plus 50 is 130 plus the original 30 that you were going to make, 160. So excuse me if I messed up my math here, right? But now you made 160 on a $12,000 spend. Look at those game-changing numbers, right? Complete game changer.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. Nice. And it's all about, I think of it as like you're never going to hit a target that you're not aiming at.
Yep.
And when I was there was a period of time in like 2011, 2012 when I was transitioning from lease options to more cash wholesaling deals.
Mhm.
And we were talking about these same things back then, Todd. But I had an acquisitions manager at the time. He was a great guy, but he was like, I can't believe we can make this much money doing what we're doing. And he was happy to make $3,000 a deal. He could not believe that you could make 10 grand or more. And he says, Joe, like $3,000, that's a lot of money. That's as much as he'd make in a month. He was a
Mhm.
part-time pastor. I said, well, okay, yeah, it is, but we need to shoot higher. And he said, but Joe, I go to the RIAs and everybody says the average profit per deals here are like 3 to 5 grand.
Yep.
Nobody makes more than 5 grand. And so I said to him, all right, let's do this. And I walked him through this process. It took about a month. I said, I want you to, instead of trying to get 3, I want you to try to get 5,000. All right. And just put that into your offer. And I gave him a formula to put $5,000 and expect that. All right. Just start expecting that. So after a week, we did a few deals like that. And I said, all right, next week, let's try to get $7,500. And then after that, we went to $10,000. And after that, we went to 15. And but right about that time, we parted ways as friends and he started doing his own thing. But like every time I made him aim higher, guess what happened? We started making more profit, more, because he was just expecting it. He was asking for it. And he went from, we worked together about a year, but he went from just happy and thrilled to make $3,000 a deal to making 10 to 15 grand on a deal. Just, it's all in the head, isn't it?
Completely, right? I mean, ironically, you could have told them 30, right?
Yeah,
$1,000, right? And he accepted it. And the funny thing is, I say, if people will say, well, people around here do $3,000 to $5,000. Well, I always say, well, that immediately tells me I need to raise it, right? Because if I'm doing what the majority is doing, right, then I know I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. I say you are renegade. So if you want to be in the top 1%, right, then you got to be different, right? You got to be, shaking things up, be the trendsetter, and, don't go back to the norm. I mean, everyone who does anything amazing does things just a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what other tips do you have, Todd? How to make more money per deal? How to squeeze more juice out of that lemon?
Well, the first thing is remember to download the script. I mean, that's the biggest thing. So get to know that script, understand it, make it part of your absolute bones. I'll give you one more tip here, okay, on how to do much bigger deals. So what we have found, so right now we've got approximately a dozen deals that we have right now that we're going to make about $80,000 on, right? Average. Obviously, those are all over the place. Some are 50, some are 120, but we just said our average right now with what we have under contract, either that we're owning it and it's on the market, or we're going to wholesale is about $80,000.
The average profit on each one.
Yep. Average.
Okay, I
Yep.
thought you said the total.
No, average of 80.
Okay.
So, 12 times 80. So about $1 million.
And which market?
Right there. Both in, just in Florida. That's just in Florida.
Okay.
So that one market is there right now. Birmingham has, I have partners on the ground there, but they said they got 350 to 400 under contract there.
Nice.
So, and again, that's just for what's going to be closing in the next 2 to 3 months. That's under contract. But the one thing that I would say is if you have a property, right, the bigger the problem that you solve, the more money that you're going to make. But there's a diminishing return there, right? So I don't suggest people get into the rehab game. That's not my recommendation to you. But if you could solve a problem that most people view as really scary, but it's super easy for you, do you think you should take a look at that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing I'd say is, okay, where can you make the most money for the a little downside? So we're a big fan of either improving the property's situation before closing or buying it and handling a problem that's big to some people, but it's actually small to us, and then selling the property. Let me give you two examples. Number one is we love houses that are like the hoarder houses, right? They're filled with crap. They're disgusting. They smell. We've got a couple of those right now. I mean, there's dog feces everywhere and it's just nasty, right? We know that once we get it and we just clean it out, we don't fix anything, but we just clean it out, pull out the carpets and stick it right back on the market. We know that we could sell that for 40 grand more, right? $40,000 more, just like that. right? Super easy. And we can do that. So I tell everybody, you want to line up private money or get partners so that you have the ability, or line up a hard money lender, which is so easy in this market. I mean, money is everywhere. So if you're like, I don't have the money, yes, you do. We could do a whole other podcast about that, just that.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is, or by the way, you could have that with a bad tenant. So we'll take over a house that has a month-to-month lease. That's got a tenant that's going to be in there for the 60 days. We'll get it, get them cash for keys, get it vacant, and handle that situation. The third thing, though, is that maybe there's a bigger deal, but it's not, you don't want to take it down, right? Maybe the risk is not worth actually buying it and taking it. So here's a little trick. You can actually improve the property before you close on it, while you don't own on it. Okay. So Joe, you're famous for lease options. This is kind of like a short-term lease option because you can control the property without owning it. So for example, if the margin's too thin for us to take it down, or we don't want to, take it down means buy it. We'll go in and we'll say, hey, Mr. Seller, do you mind if we just clean out the property and before we close, right? It'll give us a head start, right? And we can start marketing our end, right? 9 times out of 10, no problem. Yeah, you're going to clean out all the trash? Great. So we'll come in, clean out the trash, stick it right on the market. 2, maybe you got a nasty tenant in there. Maybe the margin's not good enough to take down. Get the seller to give you power of attorney to get the tenant out, get it vacant, put it on the market, wholesale it that way. You can make an extra $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 without taking it down. And so people think this is some big Herculean effort. Remember, I mean, all these little tweaks are going to send your profit to the roof, right? Number one, I mean, just to summarize, number one, expect more. You expect more, you're going to do more. Number 2, use a script, right? It's right on the screen, nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script.
Yeah.
Right. 3, negotiate harder. 4, get a lot of cash buyers that are going to bid for your properties. And then 5, do stuff to the property even before you close to sell it for more. It's okay if you do 4 the right way and 1 doesn't work out, right? Do the math. Yeah. Do the math, right? Fantastic. You're going to see your profit go through the roof. So, Joe, that's all I got for today. There's lots more. I mean, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but I think that's all I'm going to cover on today's episode.
That's fantastic. Todd Toback. No Limit Real Estate Investing, No Limits realestateinvesting.com/script. And you can see I'm looking at it right now. It's this great, very simple seller script for motivated seller leads. Todd, you have a good podcast as well. No Limits Real Estate Investing podcast. You've been doing this for a long, long time. And you come out with episodes, about twice a week? It looks like 2 or 3 times
a week. Twice a week. Yep.
Nice. 6 rules for quickly solving issues and challenges or conflicts in your real estate business. A step-by-step walkthrough of our in-house motivated seller script. What do you say when the seller says no? How does it get sellers to agree to do business with you before even going on the appointment? I love this. How to find local drivers to find smoking hot wholesale deals for you. How to get out of your comfort zone and reach your next level in business. How to mentally prepare sellers to accept a lowball offer. That's fantastic. And what do you do when you find out you're competing with other wholesalers for the same property?
That was a really popular episode, by the way.
That was
that just came out. A lot of people downloaded that one.
Maybe can you talk about it just real quick? What do you do when you find out there's other wholesalers competing against the same property you're talking to the seller?
They're going to have to listen to the episode, Joe.
Oh, okay. All right. And they can find that podcast just by go to any podcast player, do a search for No Limits Real Estate Investing Podcast, or do a search for Todd Toback, and you will find it. And leave him a good review. Leave him a good review if you're listening to him on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. And by the way, if you download the script, right, you'll be on our email list, so you'll also get notifications of the new episodes that come out.
Nice. Cool, Todd. Any parting thoughts you want to give to us?
No, I mean, get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone. Make it happen. I can tell you that this business has changed my life. If you do what I'm telling you, it'll change yours. And this is the difference between success and failure. And I can tell you that in my business, just our team loves it, right? Less deals, bigger deals. And you're going to feel like you're off the treadmill and you're running through the mountains at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So
do you still have your, and your podcast, do you still have the ones you did with Tommy, your brother?
Yeah, the old ones are still on there.
Are
the
they?
old
Nice.
ones are on there. Yeah. It's interesting because we update. A lot of stuff has changed, right?
Do or die. That's what it was.
The Do or Die series. A lot of stuff has changed since then, but it's interesting listening to those old ones.
Yeah. So when you go to his podcast or go to his website, No Limits Real Estate Investing Podcast, No Limits Real Estate Investing.com, you can find your old episodes there, right?
Yeah.
He had an episode series they did with Tom Kroll, his brother, called the Do or Die series. And that was when Tom was just getting started in the business, and very inspirational, motivational. It's exciting to see a great coach that you are pushing somebody who wasn't necessarily listening to you and everything you told him to do, but eventually figured it out that, you're right. And I need to do what you say.
Yep.
Stop questioning that and stop changing things. Really, really fantastic. Well, thank you, Todd. You're a good friend. Appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your wisdom and your help and, the inspiration, the good things that you're doing in our industry and in this space. Keep up the good work, man.
Thanks, my man.
One more time, guys, go to nolimitsrealestateinvesting.com/script and get his script right there. You'll be glad you did. We'll see you all later. Thanks, Todd.